And we are back. Welcome to another day's action in the Asian Cup and the African Cup of Nations after another day of red cards. What with all the red cards across these competitions at the moment? Don't normally see that many at major tournaments, certainly not in the group stages, but we're seeing a lot of red cards so far in this tournament that are, to be fair, having an impact on results. Not to the extent that it's causing upsets, but we are seeing a fair too many red cards. But we are back to 6 matches for you today after having only 4 yesterday, so good to see us having a bit more matches to talk about today. If you haven't done so already, please do consider dropping a like on this video if you do enjoy these series, and subscribe to the channel if you are new around here. We've been doing these predictions every single day. I intend for that to continue, and obviously we'll be back to our Premier League predictions tomorrow. Let's get into all of the action taking place today on the 18th of January. And we start off back in the Asian Cup, and we are all the way back around to, I think it is Group A and B, or is it even Groups B and C? No, it has to be Groups B and C because Qatar are in Group A. So we start off with Syria taking on Australia. And to be honest, after how these two sides respectively did in their opening games, a little bit tougher to call. Australia didn't beat India as convincingly as expected, and Syria were able to get a draw against Uzbekistan. So a little bit more doubt over this one. However, I would still expect Australia to be the strong favourites going into it. I'm going to go for 3-0. That might be a little bit disrespectful. I did go for a massive scoreline in Qatar's favour yesterday, and they only ended up winning 1-0. So watch this space. Syria may be able to produce a result, but in the end, I think Australia will be a little bit too strong. Of the teams that those two sides played against, we then have, of course, India taking on Uzbekistan. India off the back of the defeat to Australia. Uzbekistan off of the draw with Syria. And again, I think Uzbekistan really should be considered the strong favourites for this one. Obviously, not scoring that many goals would suggest that this isn't going to be as easy a scoreline as many would expect. And of course, India did better than some expected against Australia in that opening game. So I'm going to go for the same scoreline as that Australia game. I'm going to go for 2-0 to India's opposition, which would be a 2-0 win to Uzbekistan. And then finally, in Group C, we have Palestine taking on the UAE. And again, this is a real opportunity for the UAE to secure their spot in the next round of the Asian Cup. They won their first game relatively comfortably. Palestine didn't really show too much resistance in their opener. And for me, this game is just going to be a case of Palestine get beat. They'll probably score. Palestine do tend to get a goal if you look at their recent form guide. But the UAE should be winning this one fairly comfortably. And I'm going to go for a 3-1 win to them. That then brings us across to the African Cup of Nations for another day of action over in the Ivory Coast. And we start off with a battle of the Guineas. It is Equatorial Guinea taking on Guinea-Bissau. And again, this is a really tough day, I think. I think all 3 games in Africa, once again, are going to be tough to call. If you look at the fixtures we've got coming up, some big teams on show. But for me, this one will probably be going in favour of Equatorial Guinea. They put in a good performance up against Nigeria and were able to get the draw in their opener. Of course, Guinea-Bissau well beaten in the end by Ivory Coast. I say well beaten, 2-0 isn't too bad. But overall, I would expect Equatorial Guinea to win this one. I'm going to go for a narrow 2-1 win. The other game in that group sees the hosts, the Ivory Coast, taking on Nigeria, who are now in need of a result after drawing with Equatorial Guinea in their opener. Ivory Coast, of course, were the winners over Guinea-Bissau in their opener. So as with some of the teams we spoke about earlier, they will have the opportunity to get their qualification into the knockout stages of the African Cup of Nations if they do beat Nigeria this evening. And that's what I'm going to expect them to do. Nigeria, as we spoke about last time, really not in a good place in terms of form at the moment. You'd expect with the players they've got available that it would just work for them, but it seems they're not really performing that well as a team, whereas Ivory Coast are playing much, much better football. I'm going to go for 3-1 to the Ivory Coast, but who knows? Maybe tonight is the night where Nigeria get things all together. And then finally, into Group B, we have Egypt taking on Ghana. Both sides very disappointing in their opening fixtures. Egypt getting, of course, that 97th minute equaliser from the penalty spot. Ghana, in fact, losing to Cape Verde. So, massive doubts being thrown over this one from both sides. I think, again, you would expect Egypt to get the win. Is that purely because of Mohamed Salah? Probably. But I think this game's going to have a lot of goals. Both sides look very poor defensively. Both, of course, conceding 2 goals in their opening fixture. So I expect this one to be entertaining. I expect Egypt to come out on top. And I'm going to go for a 3-2 win to Egypt to round off all of today's predictions. As always, if you have enjoyed this video, as I've said at the start of the video, drop a like on it. But of course, comment down below with all of your thoughts on everything that is going to be taking place today in the Asian Cup and the African Cup of Nations, and who you think is going to keep going all the way through in this tournament. Thank you very much for watching as always. I will catch you with a double upload tomorrow, as I already said, where we'll be doing the African Cup of Nations and the Asian Cup in one video, and we'll also be doing our Premier League predictions in another. I will see you, hopefully, in both of them.